say, yeah, it's about that time for a coffee here, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. A lot of people are like the kind of people who are just like, oh, I can't have coffee past noon. And I'm like, well, that's the only time I start drinking coffee.
No, that's when I need it. Yeah. Until noon, I'm actually like a human being. And then after that, I'm just like,
right.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day. It's sort of funny. I do feel like there's maybe, if I'm lucky in a day, there's like 2 hours where I'm like a normal person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. And it's funnily enough, those are the 2 hours that you're pretty much on your own. So no one can prove it. Like,
right. Yeah, that's a great point too. Yeah. And it's never the times you want it to happen.
No,
you know?
never.
I know you're from Chicago originally. Chicago, I used to live there. I wasn't born there, but I lived there for like almost a decade. And that's kind of where I came up as like a DJ and a producer. And the podcast was sort of like a separate, like a side project I was doing along with DJing, producing, all that stuff. And it kind of just over time, like took on a mind of its own and became its own little thing. And so, I don't know, maybe you feel similarly because you're a radio presenter as well, but it's always weird to me because I think some people show up to this thinking it's like, oh, I'm about to talk to a journalist. And I'm like, oh, no. I would never claim that.
That sounds perfect. I hate talking to journalists anyway, so that's fun.
Yeah. It's tough because my inclination is to talk shit about music journalists and specifically dance music journalists, like off the bat, because I have had a lot of bad experiences. And part of the reason I started this podcast was sort of in reaction to like what I thought was a lot of really shitty, like just blog journalism that was kind of just clickbait stuff. But then at the same time, it's like, God, we really need good journalism. And there are really good journalists out there for music, some of whom I've talked to on this. I don't know. I mean, what's your experience been with like press and the public facing side of this in general?
Well, I think a lot of people ask the same questions.
Yeah.
And the questions don't really... as someone who reads a lot of music journalism myself, they're not real. That the questions aren't really things that I want to know about. So it's like your bog standard stuff. Like as a woman, I get asked all the time, "Oh, what does it mean to be a female artist?" And even as a woman, I don't care about the answer, and I don't care about other people's answers. And it's like, how many times can I be asked that question when it deflects from more important things? Like, not that representing women isn't important, but that's not my identity. So, that just off the top of my head, that's just an example. But we are approaching International Women's Week, or International Women's Day, so it's gonna come up a lot.
Of course.
But yeah, I think I feel like it's a lot of copy and paste. And as someone that's done a lot of interviews for radio, I've been guilty of that as well. Like if I've got an artist coming on the show the next day and I'm really tired, I might just go look at an interview they've done recently and like steal some of the questions. I've literally done that. So like, I can't judge, but I've talked to my friends about starting a podcast so many times, but I'm also just worried I'd get cancelled because I really let my mouth run away with me sometimes. And I actually think that there's a lack of honest journalism out there.
Well, I mean, I think that's why podcasts have become so popular, because it really is unfiltered. And even if the people are talking a little out of pocket or saying wild stuff, I think for the people who follow any podcast that you like, you sort of get a sense of who the person actually is, and you can kind of assess for yourself whether you think they're actually saying something that is truly horrible or cancelable or whatever, or it's just like, oh no, this is just, them talking shit with a friend.
Sense of humor or whatever.
Right, yeah. And it's a very fine line. It's one we're kind of drawing and erasing and redrawing every single day culturally. But I think you should do it, man, because that's something I was thinking about for you as a radio presenter. It's something I've never dealt with as a podcaster. I mean, doing radio interviews, it's sometimes you get like 6-7 minutes with somebody.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always getting I'm always getting told to cut down my radio time because I like to have the chat and I like to let my guests like unravel their stories and stuff. But like my interviews are anything from like 4 to 8 minutes.
I mean, how do you get to the meat of anything in that time? Like, I'm genuinely asking because I don't know.
No, you just don't. You don't. I guess that's what I mean about like how I feel frustrated by the kind of like, it can be quite benign, you know, like you get them in, you do the meet and greet, and then you congratulate them on what they've done. And then you kind of get maybe one or two questions and then you're wrapping it up. And those questions have to be like universally accessible. They have to be tame for the radio. And you never really get to the meat of it, like you say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, man. I mean, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. Since we're talking about your residency on Kiss FM right now, like one thing I talk about on this podcast a lot is the difference between US and UK radio, especially for dance music. And it's a point I always love to hammer home for, because we have a big American listenership, viewership, and I don't think people in America really can understand what the institution of dance music stations mean to the UK, because we just don't really have anything like that here.
Right.
And I wonder, like for you, you were born in Chicago and lived there till, how old were you when you moved?
I was like 13 when I left.
Okay, yeah, so that's enough really time probably to get a sense of like, the differences in radio, the differences in culture and how it's, distributed and consumed. And I mean, was it weird when you moved to the UK? Like, how quickly did you become aware that like, the outlets are kind of different here and music is kind of conveyed differently?
You know what? It's actually a really hard question it's a really hard question to really hit the nail on the head with, because I grew up in America in like the early 90s. So radio would have been one of the biggest mediums for music at the time, like we didn't have a lot of music stations. Social media wasn't around yet. Things like Spotify, even Napster wasn't around. And by the time I came to the UK and I was like 15, 16, 17 years old, all of these things were coming in. So it's definitely diluted the importance of radio. And even with younger generations now in the UK, we're seeing that the listening volume is getting less and less as people, for the younger demographics. So radio right now in the UK is being forced to kind of open up its doors a little bit, try and find interesting ways to engage. So we're kind of, obviously, the focus is on the audio medium, but we're kind of doing a lot more outreach stuff. We're doing like parties, we're doing hosted events, we're kind of doing activation things in, shops and record label launches and stuff like that. So we're really kind of trying to hit all the different angles that we can just to get the music out there. But I do think the UK has the UK has a lot more history in terms of dance culture, and I think a lot more history just in general. So,
well, yeah, that's definitely true.
So I guess it's like there's still radio stations going now that have been going for like 70 years. They've been going since the Second World War, and at the time they were like a really important medium for people to keep the country together, to have a kind of sense of unity at a really difficult time. I mean, the BBC has been running since the 1940s.
It's incredible.
And it's still like an institution. It's a worldwide institution. So as much as I shouldn't be talking about the BBC when I work for Kiss, like we're all family out here, it's not competitive, which I really like as well. And I don't really have a lot of firsthand experience of listening to radio in America. I mean, the last time I was in the States was when Obama was running for power. And I remember the radio stations reporting on how bad public healthcare would be, which I think is crazy.
Well, you must have been listening to some AM radio. Yeah.
I mean, I was going through the Bible Belt.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But I mean, it's. I'm not saying that the radio in the UK isn't ever used as like propaganda, because it absolutely is.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that there's much more of like a wholesome focus on music. It does seem to be like very dominantly about the culture and music.
Yeah, and just a little more, maybe it's just a little more open, like you were saying. I mean, when I think about KISS or when I think about BBC Radio 1 or any of that, I mean, I'm thinking about they're still putting live DJs on air every night who are playing mixes of, new, unreleased, current, like interesting stuff. And I think it's just a little more open than the American radio system, which I think is very locked down, very programmed.
But you don't do that over in the States.
I mean, there are still mixed DJs, but it's the programming. My understanding is that the programming is a lot more restricted. It's like you need to play X song 6 times in the next 3 hours. These are the priorities. These are like, this is the sandbox that you need to stay in, kind of thing. And I think live DJing, live mixes are less and less common over here.
Wow.
Like, it's just not celebrated in the same way I think that it is in the UK.
Okay. So we could delve into this a lot more, because I just, I don't know enough about it to know what the differences are. That seems crazy to me, though. I mean, like, credit to KISS, they have specifically asked me to specify a genre, look for the underground artists, bring new culture, like the underground culture through, give it to the masses on a plate.
Yeah.
And to hear that that's not something that's done in America is actually kind of a shock.
Yeah. I mean, prove me wrong. I hope someone yells at me and gives me examples where I'm wrong here. But I mean, major radio stations in the major markets in the US are very locked down. I feel very comfortable saying that.
Yeah. Well, if you know any different, put it in the comments. I want to find out. And we have stuff like Sirius XM. They have a million channels. They do a wide variety of stuff. I used to have a show on there. They let me play whatever I want. Nice. There's good outlets still, but I think there's no like mono institution like BBC or like KISS, where just, I feel like everyone kind of knows that if you want the coolest thing, you can go there and they will probably show it to you, Got ya. Yeah. They got like their finger on the button, as it were.
Yeah, and they're like bringing in people who know and people who are on the cutting edge. I think that's a little less desired or done out here. But it's interesting hearing you say, like, so you're 12, 13, like living in the States, living in Chicago before you moved to the UK. What were you listening to? Were you a music person at all at that point?
No. You know what? I was so young. I didn't really have, I hadn't really found my music at all. I'll tell you what, I mean, this is a little bit embarrassing, but I'm sure that some people can relate. I was brought into a very strict Catholic family.
Sure.
And music was pretty much Christian orientated. So I actually played a lot of instruments when I was a kid. I played like 3 instruments by the time I was 10.
Oh, wow.
And, my parents were very focused on me getting a good education. They wanted me to play piano. They wanted me to play guitar. So I had a lot of music theory in my life. And I had a lot of gospel music, choir, and Christian rock in my life. I was in the choir at school. I was in the choir at church as well. We went to a church in Evanston.
Oh, shout out to Evanston, yeah.
Yeah, and, it was like a big gospel choir, and I sang in the choir, and, I was really heavily involved in music, but I guess anything but public mainstream or electronic or dance or pop or anything like that, like anything that wasn't in that category, I was a part of. So when I first came to the UK, I actually just really latched into American like grunge, because I guess I missed that kind of figuring out that identity within myself. So I kind of really latched onto like American, like, American rock bands, grunge. Like I used to love, like Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, Foo Fighters, Deftones, all that kind of stuff. That was like my era.
That was big for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe Foo Fighters are actually touring at the moment. I've like waited my whole life to see them, and they're playing in London the same day that I'm playing in Kansas. So I can't go. So I'm like,
of course, that's the way it always goes, man. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. First of all, you're not the first person who has told me a similar story of kind of growing up in a religious household and being very sort of insular with just religious music, worship music. And I mean, going back all the way, 100 years, some of the best musicians ever have come out of that background, So
Yeah,
you're definitely not alone there. Would I be right to say, as much as you're comfortable talking about it, it sounds like once you moved to the UK, as opposed to sort of having that identity assigned to you, would you say that's kind of when you like self-actualized a little bit? And it's instead of like, okay, this is what my family does. It's like, well, but what do I want to do? That kind of thing.
Well, there were two major things going on at that time. One was turning into a teenager.
Yeah.
Which is very much about finding your sound, finding out who you are anyway. And, a huge kind of line of rebellion that goes down the middle of that phase, which is also kind of tying into the fact that I never wanted to move. I didn't want to leave my home. We actually moved to Australia first and lived there for a year.
Oh, wow.
And then came to London. So I was displaced like twice in the space of 18 months at like a really difficult age. And so I was just like angry at everything and everyone. And I didn't know why I was here, and I didn't know why I should listen to anyone. And I was just like, really like, fuck you, man. And, I used to like stand on my roof and play electric guitar. I used to play like Smells Like Teen Spirit, smoke cigarettes and like put them out on the wall because I needed to piss off my dad,
That's such a great mental image. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think things have changed that much, which is really stupid, but yeah.
Yeah. Now you're just DJing on a rooftop. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Still saying fuck you to everybody, but in a loving way.
What was the reason for the move or the moves?
So my dad wanted to start a charity, to look after homeless people. And he actually sold everything that we owned in America.
Oh, wow.
Actually, he gave half of it away and he sold the other half. And then he moved us to England, but he it's kind of complicated, but he moved to England. Me, my mum and my brothers all went to Australia for a bit. And then we all met up again about a year later in England, after my dad had like established his charity. So I think my dad felt like he couldn't do what he wanted to do. It was like a mission from God. That's what he felt like he was been sent to do. And he didn't feel like he could do that in the States. I'm also one of four. So there's things like education, healthcare, like lack of welfare services. Whereas, the UK just felt like a better place to raise a family. And on top of that, my mum and dad actually met in London and got married in London. So there was a sentimental sort of backdrop to that as well.
Wow. Yeah. That's so interesting. I mean, that moving across the country at that time and doing it twice at that age, I mean, that's tough for anyone, but it sounds like there was probably a lot
of angry girl.
But also like selling all your stuff, and that's a lot of chaos. It's like an extra level of extremity on top of that. I could see that being really tough.
I had this Ghostbuster tower house, right? I'll never forget it. It was huge, right? Like it was almost as tall as me when I was a kid, and it had this bucket thing that filled with gunge, and you pressed a little button and it turns, and it it was so cool. It was like my favorite toy that got given away.
That's crazy.
Like my rollerblades, like all my cassettes, just a load of cherished.
I'm getting
crap.
Mad right now hearing about that.
So much crap.
That's wild though. Yeah. Even selling the toys, you must have been pissed.
Yeah, I was angry. Yeah. But it's not that my parents were bad parents at all. They just I'm actually really glad for it now because I can be kind of like stubborn and really headstrong, but I think that having gone through that, I'm quite a compassionate person. Like I like to take time to make sure people are okay and make sure they have what they need and stuff. So, all these things that happen to you when you're younger, they build you into the person that you are now. And I'm happy with who I am. So.
No, absolutely. And I mean, living in different places, I think is super valuable for kids, for people growing up. Like, getting exposed to different cultures, ideas, all of that, I think is super, super important and really helps make a well-rounded person.
For sure.
I was wondering this is just a random thought. How long did it take you to acquire the accent once you got there?
The English accent?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was actually having this conversation with someone this morning. Oh God, this story is crazy. All right. So when my first day of school in London, I wore a prairie dress and a sun hat.
Yes.
And because I was a good little Christian American girl, and I basically got the shit kicked out of me. I don't know how else to put it. Like, I entered into an all-girls school in London where no one's got time for that shit. Like, what is that girl wearing? And I was asked to read out. I remember it was like an English class, and you know when they make you read the punctuation along with the sentence. So, I got to the end of the sentence and I said period, and that was just enough to basically get the shit kicked out of me. And I'll tell you, within about 10 days, I was calling everyone mate. I was like, do you want a cup of tea?
So it was a survival thing. You picked it up fast. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to walk around with a thermos of tea, which was mostly sugar, by the way, because I didn't like tea.
Right.
And just like exhibitionally pour tea in front of people. Be like, all right, geezer, are you right? Just to disguise the fact that I had no idea what I was doing. So
that's so funny. Well, wait, this will prove my Americanness even more. What were you supposed to say instead of period?
Full stop.
Oh, full stop. God damn.
Full stop.
I would have failed that too.
I know. But it's pretty much the worst word you can say at an all-girls school.
Right, of course. Yeah.
So, yeah. I was like the period girl for 4 years after that.
Oh, man. I was just a couple of weeks ago, I did a podcast with James Hype, and I was talking about the very famous DJ in the UK whose name is the letters EZ, and I said EZ, and he goes, actually, it's EZ, and I was like, God damn it.
So I actually agree with you. I think it should be DJ Easy because it rolls off the tongue.
Absolutely.
And also, if you think about the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, we're rhyming all the way down. Where does Z come from?
I never thought about that. Yeah.
That's just it's just like some arbitrary English twist. They love doing this shit over here.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, American English also makes no sense in a lot of ways. But are you able to to code switch? Like, can you turn the American accent back on?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I've just announced my American tour today.
I saw that.
And my friends are taking the piss because they're like, even you just thinking about it, we can hear your accent. I think I'm gonna be in the stateside for 3 hours, and I'll be talking like I used to. I'm imagining I'll just, because I think having lived in quite a few different countries, like my mom's also Australian, she lives in Australia now. My accent's very flippity floppity. It just goes with the strongest tide, really.
Right. No, it's nice. I like it. I think it's a fun accent. It's always good when you can't exactly place it,
It's like the fun house of horrors if it was an accent.
I was going to say it makes you more interesting, but that works too.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just interesting culturally. I feel like you've done a few laps more than some people because, I think a lot of people who know your work associate you with UKG, garage, two-step, all that, which now I think is kind of having a little bit of a moment in the States as well. And I assume a much bigger moment in the UK, a bit more of a revival there. But it's just interesting, the cultural exchange that happens between the UK and the US. I mean, for you, getting into what would become your sound, your music, your shit, the stuff you really loved, was it just kind of a natural thing? You just heard it and were drawn to it? Or did somebody show it to you? Was there a light bulb moment?
Oh, I like the light bulb moment idea. So I mean, like going back to the bullying thing when I was younger, the kids that used to really bully me at school were the type of kids that listened to garage. Like it was a very cool genre. And I didn't know how to kind of fit in with that. And I got the brunt end of that. So like and then, years later, I became a garage artist, and I became a garage artist because I genuinely loved the songs. Like they're great sing-along anthems, like all the 90s. It's old school garage over here. And it's just like your classic sing-along stuff, like people in the States might know, like Moving Too Fast or 21 Seconds or, a Little Bit of Luck by DJ Luck and MC Neat, like these Flowers by Sweet Female Attitude. And these were the tunes that I loved. And I remembered from way back in the day that I wasn't associated with. So after like going out on a night out, when you're all at the after party and everyone's kind of drinking and things are getting a bit loose and silly, I would just sit on YouTube and put all that music on. And I saw how lifted and how fun it was for people. And I thought, I'm going to start doing events, playing this kind of music. Like, why not? It makes people really happy. Why are we just limiting it to the after parties? So I became a promoter. I started 24-Hour Garage Girls. And the resident DJs that I was booking weren't satisfying what I wanted to hear. So I became a DJ just to fulfill my own needs at my own events.
That's the best reason to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I started playing elsewhere and everything just kind of happened. It just really spiraled really organically. I never really meant to become an artist. I never meant to become a DJ. And I definitely didn't specifically mean to become a garage DJ.
Right.
It was just that I enjoyed it for after parties and I thought this is going to be a fun party concept. And then 4 years later, I'm getting booked every weekend to play garage, and why would I turn that down? So I did that for 10 years. And honestly, I never really felt like I made good enough garage. I felt like there was always something missing from my production. No one's ever taught me how to how to produce professionally. So I was just kind of winging it all the time and trying to copy people that I looked up to. And I never really felt that I got it over the line. But I'm very grateful for it in other ways because, it got me my job at KISS. I'm still DJing every weekend, doing features, articles. I run a record label that releases garage. So I'm supporting other people coming through. And I'm very grateful for all of that. And it's been wonderful. I've just bought a flat off the back of that hard work. So
incredible.
It's nothing to be sniffed at. But last summer, I was feeling really depressed because I never felt like I got garage over the line. I never got like a big record. There weren't any garage labels that were big enough and solid enough who wanted to release my music. So it was just me kind of like rowing in the wind,
Yeah.
And I actually got COVID like for the 5th time or something.
Been there. I've been there. Yeah.
I was trapped at home. I was feeling like absolute dog shit. And just for fun, I started fucking around. I started making like what I thought might be cool jungle or like 4/4, like drum and bassy style stuff. And I ended up landing in a dubstep sound, like completely accidentally. And literally in about 3 weeks, I'd made like 10 dubstep tracks, like out of nowhere. It was like I had been with the wrong partner the whole time. And why did this feel so easy? Why was it so effortless? Why was I getting results like that? It felt like it was meant to be, like the spark was just there. Not in any other way, only in the studio.
Right.
And I started sending them to people and labels were just eating them off left, right, and center. Like my next year is just filled with big label releases for dubstep. And it's just, it's like happened so accidentally and so organically. And a good friend, like a colleague once told me, he said, this industry is so fickle. There's no right or wrong way from A to B to C. He's like, as an artist, you throw stuff at the wall. And if something sticks, you double down on it. And I just went with that logic. So I'm doubling down. I'm definitely going to be playing garage in America. But it's going to be fitted around like all the dubstep stuff that I've been making. So
yeah, I think that all checks out. That sounds great to me. And certainly I think there are a lot of producers who are kind of embracing like a multi-genre sound, if you want to call it that, in terms of their audience showing up and knowing that they're going to hear a bunch of different things over the course of the night. And I mean, for me, that's my favorite thing. That's how I started DJing. I mean, when I was coming up in Chicago, that's what everybody was doing. It was just the normal thing. And it was weird to me, to be honest, when it started to switch and people really just were showing up wanting to hear like a single sound the whole night. It's odd. So it's kind of nice that I think it's coming back. And I think a lot of artists are pushing that. And it's cool to hear you talk about kind of naturally falling into the dubstep sound, because I mean, I was listening back to your whole catalog, like old stuff and new stuff. I love the new tune on Zed's Dead's label, and a lot of what you've been making, I think, for the dubstep side, like it fits in perfectly with the sound that's going on right now. Like, I don't know, I can hear the older UK influences. Like, I think you're well served by kind of being there and being steeped in that culture, because it's a little more. Like, you can tell that you also know the roots of it as well as the new sound.
I used to love dubstep. Like back in like 2010, 2012, I was like all over that shit. Like Screamin' Benga, Casper, like all these kind of more rootsy like multi-layers of sub and like FM frequencies and stuff, harmonic basses like that. I love that shit. So,
and the groove too, like, and the bounce of it. That's, I think for me, I have plenty of complaints about American dubstep, and people who listen to this show know that it's not always my favorite thing. But one of my biggest complaints is like somewhere along the way, the bounce and the pocket kind of got lost there. And it's something I think the UK still has so much of. And it's like one of my favorite things is, you know, a tune that only has a few elements in it and it's slow, but somehow it's still like just bumps, you know?
It's really nice to hear you say all of that, because it's not, it wasn't intentional, and it feels kind of surreal because, you know, like I said, when I was fooling around on Ableton and I just wanted to make something other than garage, I actually started with a garage template that I use a lot from my drums. And I just repositioned drums. So I didn't actually get new snicks, new snares, new kicks, the snicks, you know.
It's just producer terms, the snicks, you know.
Oh yeah, the snicks, you know, classic. It wasn't like I went out and got new noises. I actually just repurposed a lot of the garage drums that I've already made in the past and just put them into a dubstep formula.
That's smart, actually. I mean, that's like a tip for any producers listening to this.
Actually,
I
was just being lazy. I was just being lazy. None of it was deliberate. It was just like a happy accident. So I'm doing interviews now where people are like, "Oh, like, we really love that you've infused your garage into your dubstep," and I'm like, "I was just cutting corners, dude." Like,
but that's sometimes the best way. I mean, I think the more I do this show and talk to a lot of different producers, you know, nobody's doing it the same way. But I think one thing that's shared by a lot of people making really good music is that the more you overthink it, probably the worse it's going to be, you know? So if you can stick to whatever is instinctually working for you, that's great. I mean, and simplifying your workflow, whether it's from laziness or not, is always a good thing to do.
Yeah. Sometimes being lazy pays off.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think most producers are lazy by nature, honestly. Like it's sort of ironic because I feel like a lot of us end up being very busy because you have to be very busy to kind of, you know, be your own boss, right? Like, to make this career work, you have to make sure the work is coming in and everything's getting done. But I think internally, sort of ironically, a lot of us are resentful of the fact that we have to do that, you know?
So true. You know, it's funny because it's like the world doesn't need more DJs or producers. Like, the world needs like more doctors, more teachers, like more like humanitarian aid workers, like people like my dad, for example. But we all just get the hump when we're like asked to do more work. And it's like, well, we begged for this job. And then furthermore, because I totally agree with what you're saying, but furthermore, I feel like most good producers are total introverts as well. You know, I hate going outside.
Yeah.
I get nervous before interviews. I get nervous before going on stage. My favorite situation is either sitting alone or with 2 to 3 people. Like
100%. Yeah. I'm never unhappier than 5 minutes before a podcast starts.
Yeah. And then when it's over, what's the first thing you do? Like shut everything, like,
oh, for sure.
Zone out.
But it's also one of those things where 99% of the time after it's over, I do all those things, but I'm also like, that was great. I'm glad I did that. You know, like it's always a good experience. So it is, part of it is that you have to remind yourself that like, I just have a shitty brain, and, you know, I know that doing these things will bring me happiness and is what I want to do. So you kind of just have to be like, shut up, brain. Like, we're just
exactly.
We're just going to do this.
Stop it, evil me, or lazy me, or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of like the gym, but I don't go to the gym, so I can't really tell those kind of stories.
that one I've actually gotten, I fixed that one for me a long time. I used to be a lot heavier. I lost a bunch of weight. This is like decades ago now, but got in a really good routine. And it's funny, that one, I mean, I'm not happy about going, but it's just, I don't even think about it. I just get up. It's one of the first things I do during the morning. I just go, and it's kind of hardwired now. And it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that till you said it, but I kind of stopped hating that somewhere along the line.
Oh my gosh, I need to pick your brain on how you do that, because the only time I feel good about the gym is when I'm leaving. And I know that is the longest point between where I have to go back again.
Well, and you're right. That is the best feeling. Being done. That's in general. Being done with anything is the best feeling for me. I read this really interesting article actually about like the pleasure receptors in your brain, and it really helped clarify. So like when you do something that's bad for you, you get your endorphins straight away, and then they depreciate as you finish up doing the naughty thing. So like it might be like eating a chocolate bar or going on the sesh or whatever, you know, and you're so happy when you're cracking that chocolate bar open or you're hitting the bar or whatever it is. And it's like, and it's just downhill dopamine hits from there. Right.
So you kind of end up chasing it, and you're not happy until you get that next hit. Whereas the things that are good for you, the dopamine hit comes from after you finish doing it. So you have to push yourself mentally. You have to have the mental fortitude to push yourself into doing that thing, because you know you're going to get the dopamine hit at the end. And that actually works in reverse. So rather than becoming like having like an addictive pursuit of happiness, you actually learn to self-gratify without the dopamine, and it makes you a much stronger person with just every other aspect of your life.
I love that.
It's just whoa.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. It's like, you have to force yourself to grow up or be mature a little bit that way. Like it just made me think of, there's that famous marshmallow experiment. I don't know if you're familiar with this, where they would like put a kid in a room and they'd put a marshmallow on the table in front of the kid. And they'd say, you can either eat this marshmallow now, or you can sit here and wait for 10 minutes and then you'll get 2 marshmallows. And overwhelmingly, the kid would just eat the marshmallow, because kids don't really get the idea of like delayed gratification and exactly what you're talking about. But I feel like in so many ways, like we're all still the kids, you know?
We're all that kid with the one marshmallow, yeah.
Right, exactly. It's like, I want the marshmallow. I see the marshmallow. I'm going to eat it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Yeah. I'm getting hungry thinking about marshmallows.
I mean, I'm not above crushing a bag of marshmallows.
No, me neither, bro.
42.
Honestly, said that.
But wait, I want to go back, because you said something about your production I thought was interesting, where you were talking about, you sort of felt like, am I right in saying that like when you sort of stumbled into the dubstep zone that you're in now, do you feel like your production sort of somehow leveled up at the same time? Because I was listening to some of your older stuff too, and like I think there's a bunch of great garage tunes in there as well. Like, do you see your production in like different phases in terms of like skill level?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I mean, I listened back to some stuff that I released years ago, and I'm glad that it's up, and I won't take it down because I think it's really important to show growth and that you're genuine, and I think that is literally what inspires people to have a go. And also for them to believe that you're a real person and you're not faking it and you're not having ghost producers and shit like that. So I'm happy that it's up there, but I definitely feel a bit embarrassed about the quality. And I also know that some of the sounds that might sound good to other people, I was using a lot of samples back then. I was cutting corners and, not kind of getting to grips with my synth work, and a lot of fumbling, not really knowing what I was doing with EQing and side chaining and just sort of more technical stuff. So I kind of hear all the cracks, and I also hear like any bits that maybe like things that I didn't make myself. The thing that I love about my dubstep is that everything on those channels is me. It's mine. Like I use Operator, I use Serum, I use Massive. I'm like really heavy on, even if I'm using a preset as a bass layer, I'm fucking with that preset until it's something unique. So I just feel like I'm fully backing myself more. So it's so hard to be objective about the actual music. Like I couldn't tell you, the only reason that I think one is better than the other is because people are signing the dubstep. Like my dubstep tracks are getting signed so quickly, and by labels that I've wanted to work with for like Deadbeats, UKF. Like I've wanted to work with these guys for over a decade. And they're signing my music and they're really happy. Like it's not like I've got to beg for it or anything. Right. Whereas with the garage, it was just it was hard to get people to back it. And that was even with a track record of having a label, having Kiss, being out on shows every weekend as a garage artist. And I was still struggling to get labels to back it. So I'm just going on that feeling. Like it's almost like you're holding up two drawings or two dresses and they're both pretty, but your friend is going, oh no, that one, you're going to look shit in that one. Maybe it's a shit example, but
no, I love that. I know exactly what you're talking about. And you're doing the smart thing. Like what you said earlier about, when you see something sticking, having some staying power, seeing people attracted to it, you should absolutely go towards that thing. That's great advice. No question. But I will also say, just to give you some credit too, I think some of this stuff is timing and some of it is also kind of just randomness. Like I would not be surprised if at some point years down the line, if you start dabbling with garage again, it would not surprise me at all to find a totally different reaction. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. And I think definitely time and placement is a thing. Like, it's actually kind of frustrating because like you said earlier, garage is having a real big day right now in the UK. There's loads of artists that I've worked alongside for 10 years who are absolutely blowing up right now because garage is like mainstream.
Yeah.
And I'm just about to turn my back on it after a decade. It just seems like the worst timing. But for whatever reason, it just sits better for me. Everyone's got their own journey. And
absolutely.
I will emphasize, I would never, ever do anything that I didn't love. Like, it's not like I'm like, oh, garage isn't working. What can I sell out on? Let me try and make that, It's kind of been more like, oh, I love this sound and I love that sound, but this one is doing more for me right now. But never say never. I would definitely be happy to revisit garage. And I still do. I've got a couple of projects in the works right now with some English artists where it's two-step, but I'm applying a lot of the bass work from the dubstep stuff, but just with like a repatterned drum fit. So.
That's smart. Again, I love the hybrid stuff. That's how culture moves forward, man, is somebody from one scene having an idea, incorporating ideas from a different scene, cross-pollination. That's always the best shit.
Mix that shit up.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me flip this idea because I'm curious too, for you now going into dubstep, what is your take on dubstep in the UK right now? Because obviously the American dubstep scene is huge and has been for a long time. But I've had conversations with other UK artists, like I know Flux Pavilion said this, and somebody else was talking about it too, that like they felt like it was actually harder for them to play good shows in the UK these days, and that they sort of felt like, well, hey, this is where I come from. Like, why aren't you guys supporting this anymore? Like, do you see that? Do you feel like there's new energy for dubstep now?
I definitely would agree. Was it Flux?
It was Flux definitely said that, and somebody else did too, and I just can't remember who. But yeah, Flux, he was kind of mad about it. He was like, yeah, just like I can't get booked for good shows in the UK anymore. Like it's just not there.
I really agree with him. So like I've been pushing for dubstep sets over garage sets in the UK for about 8 months now, and I've played one. Like a pure dubstep night, and it was for UKF, the label that I just released on. I'd been booked for other shows where they were like, you can play dubstep if you want, we just want you on the lineup. But you get there and you see what the crowd want, and you listen to the other DJs, and you drop maybe 1 or 2 dubstep tunes, and you're just like, better revert to what I know is going to go off. Because like, when I'm in the studio, it's about me, it's about what I want. I'm kind of very selfish like that. I'm like, what do I want my sound to be? I'm not happy until I feel like it's good. And then I'll let people judge it. But when it comes to live shows, it's never about me. It's always about giving the audience a good time. Like I always think, you're working a 9 to 5, you've chosen to spend your money and your time this weekend to come to the night that I'm playing. Like it's not about me. It's about giving you a good night. So quite a few times I've just kind of bowed under the pressure to revert back to garage, well-known sing-along songs and, the Sammy Vergy records and all the rest of it. So I'm really excited to come to America and just be able to really like go gung-ho on the 140 and just really commit to that sound. But I would say I've seen a lot. I don't know a lot of dubstep artists in the UK. I mean, Hamdi's from the UK, but he's basically now an American citizen. He just moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
So I'm so jealous about. Like, I want to be there. And there's like, Dr. P, Flux, and Sicaria represents 140, but she's not exclusively dubstep. She plays a lot of trap and like other rhythms as well.
She's so dope. I love her.
I know. I love Sicaria. And that's really all I can think of. I mean, I went to a Mala show for like a Deep Medi takeover in Camden in London, and it was rammed. It was absolutely packed front to the back, and it was the deep wubs all night, and it was fucking great, and everybody was loving it. But that was like a one moment, considering I go out and I play in clubs every weekend, sometimes 3-4 times a week. To feel like that was a standout event is really strange. So I actually don't think that the culture here isn't thriving yet.
Yeah.
So,
no, it's interesting because I mean, we obviously imported it from you guys at a certain point, and I do wonder if eventually we'll sort of send it back over,
Yeah, please do. Yeah. Well, it feels now like UK dubstep artists are just being pulled to America. I mean,
totally.
I actually have more US shows this year than I do UK shows.
I mean, it makes sense. You still see Rusko still tours here, Caspa still tours here. I mean, there's still a market for it. Absolutely. I'm looking at my notes here. I want to make sure for people who don't know sort of your background, like I want to sort of paint the picture of how you got there. So you mentioned when you first came to the UK, started getting into dance music, becoming aware of it. You started as a promoter, and you mentioned 24-hour Garage Girls. Mm-hmm. For people who don't know, like, obviously that started as like a promotion company kind of thing, but has grown into a much bigger thing. How do you describe what that entity is at this point?
Now?
Yeah. Or like, what's the path to what it's become?
Okay. So I say now we're like a performance brand. So we're like a group of 4 girls. I'm the DJ. Kelsey is the singer slash host, MC, if you will. And then Millie and Jazz are professional dancers. They do choreo. That like the whole set is choreographed. They do really impressive like acrobatics and big like displays. So it's a very unique live show. It's not just, I've had a little bit of a stigma before with the idea that the DJ is God and everybody just needs to stand there and look at it.
Right.
So I tried to create something that had a lot of energy and was kind of unique, and had a lot of different ways to interact with and different things to look at. So, the kind of emphasis there is on the showmanship in the entertainment. And I'm really proud of what we've done. It's been refined in different ways over the years. And like you say, it started as a brand, it started as a concept. And I started off with a whole team of girls, and it was kind of anonymous. They would just kind of run around and nobody knew particularly who they were or anything. But it was just like you come to the party and there's a lot of girls and there's a lot of garage.
Right.
And over the years, I've kind of thought in order to really get the idea of us off the ground, I feel like people need to kind of be able to relate to who we are. So I refined the group down, and now it's us four, and everyone's got a very specific job. It's very specifically us four, and we're no longer a event. We are now an act that you can book.
I like that. And I mean, there is a precedent for that kind of thing. Like, obviously, something like Major Lazer, the dancers are part of the group. The MC is part of the group. I mean, even going all the way back to like the Prodigy, two members of the Prodigy are dancers,
That's, what? I never ever made that comparison, but that's so true.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's history to it. There's precedent. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm a big Major Lazer fan, so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
In general, like the whole point, it's dance music, but it's interesting that we don't often elevate the dancers, Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like, I think as like kind of a tomboyish woman, I've never been big on like podium dancers. Each to their own. Like it's not a judgy thing. It's just like my personal vibe. Like, I've been on the dance floor when girls have been super erotic with their dancing, and I've seen the way that it causes conflict in couples on the dance floor, and it can create like a seedy energy sometimes, and it's something I really wanted to stay away from. So we kind of really pushed for kind of an androgynous style, like very like power action moves, like it's much more based on like skill than on sexuality.
Right.
And that's what I always want to emphasize with women in music anyway, is judging people on their skill and their talent and their work ethic above everything else.
No, 100%. Yeah. And I think there's space for all of it, and it's kind of just like we were saying earlier about sort of following instinctually the sound that appeals to you most. And that ends up being the sound that people are attracted to. I think it's the same with dance, with presentation on stage, anything. If you're, true to yourself and what you want to put out there. And to go back all the way to something you said really early on is like, if you don't see something that you'd like to see more of in the scene, you put it out there yourself,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
That's kind of like the only real North Star I can point anyone to if anyone's looking for advice. Is just like, what do you want to see? What do you want to hear? You got to go make it,
Yeah. I mean, also, like, I think it's important to be honest and raw. I think being raw, being vulnerable, can feel like the wrong thing to do, like on a personal level, but it's crucial to inspiring other people, because I remember the moment, like you say, the light bulb moment that I decided to be a producer, which I would say now is like most of my value. And it was from watching, there's this thing, I think it's called like Against the Clock, and it's like 10 minutes. They give a producer 10 minutes to make a tune.
Yeah.
And Flavor D was on there. And I had never seen a woman as a producer before. I didn't even realize that there was a space for women in that world. And she smashed it, but I watched her struggle. I watched her kind of like pick like a hat and then change it a couple times. And there was like something wrong with, one of the actions that she was doing with the EQing. And I mean, I know a little bit more now than what I did at the time when I was watching it, but watching her be authentic and make a track from scratch in a really limited space and capacity made me feel like I could do that too. Like, it was like demonstrating that it was a journey and there was space for mistakes and there was space for growth. And it made me feel like I could be in that space as well. And the rest is history. So that's why I can try and be as like transparent as I can about that kind of stuff.
I completely agree. And I mean, that just shows you the power of representation, which is like an idea we talk about a lot, but I think we're shown not enough actual examples of it. And that's such a simple one where it's just like, no, I saw someone who I could see myself in do a thing and then all of a sudden thought that I could do it. Like, that's just the basic meaning of representation, which I love. The other part I wanted to touch on is, her being vulnerable and letting you see her sort of figure it out and muddle her way through to making a cool beat. That's actual vulnerability. And I think in modern times, in like the social media era, where everyone knows you're supposed to be vulnerable because that's what does well on social media. But what that has ended up encouraging is a lot of people sort of performing vulnerability.
Oh my God. Yes. I call this fake real, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I was trying to describe it to my mum, which often is the best way to learn something yourself. Describe it to someone who hasn't got a clue.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
You find your words. But I feel like when Instagram started, it was very smoke and mirrors. It was very like, oh, look at me, like leaning on a palm tree with a Ferrari in the background, like very orchestrated setups designed to make you want that lifestyle. Things that were almost unobtainable were put in front of you. And I feel like the new generation, Gen Zs have grown up with that, like rammed down their throat. So the natural rebellion to that is to want to see authentic shit, right?
Yeah.
And that's why TikTok, I think, does so well because it's so raw. I mean, TikTok actually pushes. I've made music videos and I don't even post them on TikTok because they're too highly polished for them to do well on there. But I tell you, I have done, I have set up a lot of accidents for TikTok, where you kind of, you create the scenario and then you try and make it look as real as possible. And it's so, it actually takes more time and energy than just making the good thing.
100%.
And that is so mind-boggling to me as like a creative person that you would like actively like make something less good in order to attract more people. It really bothers me.
Yeah, no, it's a crazy thing to do. I think it drives every artist crazy at some point. And I think to what you were saying about like Gen Z in general, I think younger generations also have better sensors for when something is manufactured like that too. So I think even the people who have had success making a bunch of those sort of manufactured moments that maybe did well for them a while ago, I feel like that's less and less now. And people are so quickly identifying. It's like, oh, they're doing this kind of video, or they're like, this is the message. This is like the feeling they're trying to convey, and you can kind of tell within like 5 seconds of watching it, like what like, you're supposed to.
Don't tell me how to feel. Like I'm not going to buy this. Like even if you're not writing out now on it, people can still tell that you're trying to pitch them a release or something.
And I will say, I say this every time, and it's just like a soapbox I get on, so forgive me for it. But it's basically all that performative shit is. It's only to make money for the companies that run those platforms. That's all we're really doing at the end of the day is accepting an employment contract with the assholes at like Facebook and Instagram and all that. And it's complete bullshit. It devalues art. It's like the worst form of capitalism. So I get it obviously I've engaged with it too many times and I will again.
You have though. This is it. They have us by the balls with this shit.
I'm not criticizing anyone who does it, but it is, I really, every time it comes up, I'm like, we all need to remember that this is complete bullshit and we are being fucked around here. And this has nothing to do with art or the value of your art.
I actually think it's kind of dangerous as well, though, on a social level, because, obviously there's things like filter culture, which is really bad. Yeah. You know, I've been under the pressure of it myself, especially as a woman. You know, you post something, maybe the light isn't good. You get told you're ugly. And then the next time you post, you really want to use the filter. And it's really hard to like have that strength. But I actually think on a deeper psychological level, because that's a very surface level thing. Like everyone can see that filters are a problem. Do you remember when like Tube Girl came out? And
no, I don't know.
Girl, she was that girl. She was on a tube and she was like doing that with her phone. But you just saw these amazing angles,
right?
And it was viral, and everybody was doing the trend. Maybe it's an English thing, actually, for tubes.
It could be. It also could be that I just missed it. I mean, I'm not on top of every single trend. Yeah.
Yeah. But everyone started doing that kind of content where you're in public and you're essentially making like an idiot out of yourself.
Yeah.
And everyone in real life is watching you get in their way, be really ignorant, really like obnoxious, do something with no sound. And it's just you and your phone and you're going, and it looks ridiculous. But what it teaches people is that the content that they're making, what exists on their phone, the version of them that's on their phone is more important than the version of them that exists in reality.
Well, of course. And you could take that even... You could take it farther. And I mean, I think it teaches people that the version on their phone is reality, that's the thing that matters. Yeah.
It's crazy. And it really bothers me. I mean, I used to proper doom scroll TikTok and I hated it. And, it gave me like, everyone thinks I've got ADHD nowadays. And that's probably why, I felt like I had ADHD when I was on it for 3 hours a day. I'm not knocking people that have ADHD, by the way.
No, of course.
It's just like a bit of a trend.
Well, I mean, I think there's studies that show that overall people's attention spans have gotten shorter. We retain less information overall. I mean, it's global trends. It's happening to all of us,
Yeah. When I started to look at TikTok as basically just like a series of people that are in a room on their own talking to their phones, it just made me really depressed, like really bummed out. And I just didn't want to engage in the app anymore. So I will, another good bit of advice, my friend said, don't work for TikTok, make TikTok work for you. So go on that app, post your shit, get off, basically.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's how I try and play it now.
No,
so don't message me on TikTok. I'm not there.
Absolutely. I think that's the way you have to do it to have any kind of healthy relationship with it, because it's business. We're going to have to keep engaging with it. So yeah, I think you have to find some kind of healthy distance. I mean, I'm always amazed. There are people who are sort of the opposite of what we're talking about, who are like on top of every change to the algorithm and analyzing all their metrics hour by hour. And some of them are very good at it. And I think for some people, it turns into a game that they can kind of enjoy on some level by trying to like beat the algorithm, sort of like a video game, which I get to a certain extent, but I will say on a long enough timeline, it still ends sad every time, Well,
I mean, I actually have to take my hat off to people who can make it work for them, because they essentially, your following does equate to your gig fee, how many promoters want to book you. And obviously, that's real money, that's real capital, that's your rent, that's your food in your mouth. That's, it's a job. And if you can work smarter, not harder on that level, I respect the hustle. I do. I hate the platforms and I hate how much money they make off so many dejected people on there. But
yeah, it's sad. And part of it too, I mean, this theme keeps coming back up of like authenticity, but I think for some people, it's just they are more naturally inclined to sort of gel with that system, with like a social media ecosystem, and others like probably you and me aren't. And even when I was talking to James Hype the other day, who, his videos are crazy. And I think he spends hours upon hours every day crafting meticulous videos. He's always thinking about content. Is this content? What kind of content can I make today? And, for him, it seems as if he's enjoying it as well as being really good at it. Certainly all of his crazy viral videos have, upped his career significantly. And so for some people, I think it makes more sense than others. And that's worth remembering too, that like we're told that this is something we're all supposed to be doing. But it's like, well, no, if just like anything else in the world, like if this doesn't speak to you, find something else that does. And like you said, make it work for you. Because I think that's, at the end of the day, there are universal laws. And one of them is that for art, people are drawn to authenticity in whatever way that you find it. So if you're able to best represent what you think is authentically cool, however you're representing it, that should be the goal versus like, a single platform that maybe serves some people better than others.
Yeah. Here. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, definitely.
Well, what haven't we talked about? Is there anything else? I mean, we talked about, you've got the new tune with Zed's Dead. You're doing your US tour. I saw you have an Ibiza residency as well.
I do. So I do a lot of support for Craig David on the garage side of things.
We got to talk about that. I'm such a huge Craig David fan.
Oh my God. Like the nicest, most wholesome, most like, just like gentleman, supportive, spiritual, like gentle, loving person in the music industry that I've ever met. He's great. And I will never stop doing shows for Craig because like, even if I'm just a dubstep artist, I will still always come back and play garage for Craig.
I mean, he's such a legend. And you want to talk about, people who have had like the ripple effect of him on like garage culture and elevating it to the mainstream. I don't know. I saw him. He did like a US tour last year. And I think it was the first time he had toured the US in like 10 or 15 years or something like that. Maybe 20 years, something crazy.
Maybe,
and I went out and saw that tour. I mean, it was just pure joy. I mean, because
he's great, right? Like,
he's obviously an incredible performer, but like the crowd, I think it was all people who hadn't seen him in like 20 years. And it was all just the diehards who, knew every word. And obviously he's a seasoned performer. He was pulling out all the tricks, doing all the hits. And I mean, it was just front to back. It was like the perfect, you could not ask for a better night if you're a fan of Craig David. It was like just one of those perfect nights.
I mean, I've played alongside some really big names. Like I feel quite lucky to have been on some lineups with like absolute, like, how would you put it? Like household names, in the UK dance music. And Craig works harder. He's kinder. He's more authentic than any of these people. And I'm not getting paid. Craig's team do not pay me to say this shit. He DJs, he MCs, he's making his own music, he's singing, he's rapping, he's going to the front and touching people's hands. He's like encouraging people to look to the person next to them and give them a hug. Like he just covers all bases. And then he gets off stage and he's just so wholesome with his energy backstage. There's no like, you can't sit with us. I'm better than you. He makes a real effort to go and talk to the fans, go and talk to the artists who have supported him. And for me, that's the kind of music industry that I want to be supporting. Those are the kind of artists that I want to be propping up again and again and again, because I've definitely seen it the other way around. I've seen artists getting paid huge sums of money, being horrible backstage because the ridiculousness of their rider is not being met to its full extent. And then they go on stage and they play for 10 minutes and then they fuck off again.
Yeah, I've seen
that more than not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, how did you start working with Craig David or playing shows with him?
I actually invited him to come on Kiss because he was he started touring again, and this may have been after the big gap. You know how you were talking about there was like a 15-year hiatus. So he started touring again, and he started writing an album, which is now out now. But this was like maybe 3 years ago. And he was just really looking for exposure. You know, he just wanted people to know that he was back and he was writing new music, and he was just as hot on it as he'd always been. So I was like, Craig David, let's get you on Kiss FM. You know, I do the garage show. It's kind of my job to be shining a light on your comeback. And after the interview, we just chatted for like an hour and a half, like we're doing now, just setting the world to right, you know, like talking about what we love about the music industry, what needs to change, like how you get up in the morning, like what time do you have your coffee, like, you know, like just kind of connecting on so many different levels. And then about maybe a month later, my agent got a call from his team just saying, we'd love to have SHOSH like on tour. We really like her energy. And I was like, here. So yeah.
That's awesome. That must have been really fun, like natural. Going out with him for the first time.
I think, you know what? My mom actually thought that I was going to marry him. She was like, oh, Craig David is grooming you to be his bride. So, going back to me having the Christian upbringing, so Craig David is quite a strong Catholic, and he's very open about his faith. And my mum researched several articles where he talks about being a good Catholic, and she was like, oh my God, you two are going to have beautiful Catholic garage babies. Funny. And I was like, Mom, hold your horses. Like, I don't think he's grooming me to be his bride. I think he just wants like not a dickhead on his tour.
That's so funny. She's like already planning your wedding. She's like, you can DJ your own wedding.
I know. Honestly, she was getting so ahead of herself. It's unreal.
That's incredible.
Hey, Dave, if you're watching, I'm sorry.
Are your folks, do they get what you're doing now?
Oh, that's a great interview question. So my mom still thinks that I do drugs and play to my friends.
Sure.
She's just like, all right, whatever makes you happy, career. And my dad was really worried about me, and constantly kind of like putting a lot of pressure on me, like, what's your plan going to be if that doesn't work? And what are you doing this week to try and secure yourself? And just really like
it's intense.
On me a lot, like a lot of doubt, even until about 6 months ago. I think he saw me. What was it? It was some show. So there's a festival in the UK called Boomtown.
Oh, sure.
I played on their main stage to about 45,000 people. And my dad saw that video, and it was the first time that he's ever gone, oh, you're actually doing okay. Like,
wow.
Go on then. And ever since then, he's been really interested. He's like, what are you doing this weekend? Like, that sounds cool.
Oh, that's great.
He's a lot more positive.
That's really
but I
nice.
think he really needed to see like otherworldly levels of success in order to understand that I was okay. So they're on board. They're not. They don't hate me.
Well, that's good.
They've got 3 brothers as well, so there's loads of space for me to fuck up and them to do well. So.
Sure. Yeah, that's nice. It's not all on your shoulders.
No, it's fine.
Well, where have you, as we kind of wrap it up, like this is a very open-ended question, and feel free to answer or not as you please. But like, where have you ended up spiritually at this point, coming from the background that you have? You know, and doing what you do. Like, I think I'm not religious particularly, but I think doing music is a very spiritual act. And like, where are you at with it at this point?
I would say that I was agnostic. I don't have a faith, and having grown up in organized religion, I feel like I have experienced a lot of downsides of that. Sort of elements of control and guilt that I really can't get behind. And I'm also a very see, hear, now kind of person. I'm very skeptical. I like to see how the sausage is made, how the science is working. And I just don't feel like there's enough evidence for an organized religion in the sense that we have it now. However, I do feel like I've felt firsthand the power of some kind of spirituality. Like I've been in a lot of situations that could have gone really badly if not for some grace of power. I'm not even sure how to phrase it. Like my mum would say that I had a guardian angel. I mean, I used to kind of have a really rough life. Before I was a DJ, I rebelled really, really hard, and really, really lost my mind and my soul to addiction and other things, and put myself in a lot of really dangerous situations, like mentally, physically. And I worked through all of it, and a lot of it feels kind of divine, but I cannot get on board with, kind of God is watching you, God is judging you, like certain people are valued above others. I just can't get on board with like the politics behind organized religion and the didacticism, the kind of judging other people thing and having certain rules that haven't been changed for, 2,000 years.
Relying on a book that was written 2,000 years ago by people who didn't understand basic science. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And the idea that if you're challenging that, then you're going against God and he will punish you also seems like if we do have an infallible God, surely he should be open to people asking questions and he should be willing to prove himself from time to time. So, I mean, there was something that really made me laugh, and I think it sums up how I feel about organized religion. It was like, how many people have been killed by the devil in the First Testament? And it was like 7. And then on the tally next to God, it was like 4,300,000. And I just thought, what kind of God is this that we're worshiping? He either sees all this awful things in the world and doesn't care, in which case I'm not supporting him, or he doesn't have the power to fix it. So he's not who he says he is. So
yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I align pretty much exactly with everything you're saying. And it's one of those funny things where when I was younger, of course, I was arrogant and I was just like, there's no God. This is stupid, blah, blah. But then you grow older, you have experiences and you're like, okay, there's a lot going on that we can't explain and we don't know what it is. To me, the failing of basically all organized religion is like thinking that we came up with the answer and now we know. Like it's so arrogant and so stupid because it's like, no, guys, like we're all very dumb. Like whatever's happening, we just don't. So simple. Yeah, we haven't figured it out yet. Whatever it's going to be, and I don't know. There's a famous quote. I can't remember who said it, but it's like, God is just the blanket that we throw on top of the mystery to give it shape, That
is great. I love that.
Yeah.
I'll give you another quote. This is directly from me. Don't believe anyone that says that they have the answers with either religion or production.
Amen. Yeah, I love that.
Like they're full of shit.
Okay, this will be last real question and then we can wrap it up. But you mentioned like the darker time right after you moved and you were angry, you were going through stuff. If you go through this hard time, eventually you get out of it, you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Is that when you also started getting more involved with the music side that would end up being such a big part of your life now?
Actually, no, kind of the reverse. So I definitely music was like at the forefront of all of my angst and feeling displaced and having a lot of depression, not fitting in, not knowing who and what I should be. And music was like kind of my rock, but also the facilitator for all of those questions. I really wanted to be a musician, and I was actually in a punk band that was doing quite well until I was 20. And I basically just faced incredible pressure from my parents to quit everything and go and get a degree. So I did that, and I quit music, and I got a degree in English because it was the only thing that I could think of doing that was normal. And I did really well in English. I actually got like a first class degree and then went on to do a master's degree for 2 years, and I graduated that with distinction. So I've got a really good education now, but honestly, coming out of the education and going into a 9-to-5 job was the most heartbreaking, demoralizing, because what I felt like I had done was given up all of who I was and what I wanted in order to be a good girl and do the right thing. And I felt like my reward for that was a shitty 9-to-5 job. And I was not okay with that. And I knew that I had more to give. And so it was like doing the education kind of cleared my head and gave me confidence and grounding. And I wasn't like rebelling anymore, and I wasn't partying that hard. But then when I came out of education and realized that all my hard work was basically just for like a shaft to the head, I went really badly into depression again, and started like really overusing Class A drugs and like every day. And it got to a point where I quit my job and I was just at home all the time off my head. And that went on for about 3 or 4 years. I was in, kind of a really abusive phase of my life where I just felt like I had a dream, I lost it, and I tried to be a good girl in order to fit into society. And my reward for that was what I had now. And I just hated life. And I thought, what's the point in fucking trying? I may as well just get off my head and try and blow my brains into oblivion.
Right.
And it took me about 4 years to get out of that phase. And when I did, I started 24-hour Garage Girls. And the rest is history. So I've been self-employed I was still kind of coming off hard drugs when I started it. And I've been doing Garage Girls for 11 years. So I've had 10 years I'm not completely sober. I still have fun, when the time's appropriate. But, I also I'll have a salad for dinner. I go to the gym. I go to bed at 11 p.m.
Balance and moderation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like a healthy person now, and my brain is healthy. But yeah, so it's weird. It's like music was kind of keeping me from blowing up my life, and then not having it really made me blow up my life.
Right.
And now that I'm back on it, I've just found a good balance of being happy and working hard.
I mean, there's a couple, it's a beautiful story, and it's awesome that you've kind of taken it to where you've taken it now, coming from that dark place. That's very impressive. Also worth noting, very impressive to have a drug issue and to sort of solve that while you're getting back into nightlife. That generally doesn't go hand in hand.
I mean, which came first? The chicken or the... Yeah, but...
Right.
Yeah.
But all of that is to say, there's some really, I think, universal themes in that story. The thing we've been talking about this whole time is authenticity and following your passion and what makes you happy. And then by doing the opposite and doing sort of what you feel you're supposed to instead of what speaks to you in life gets you into a dark place. That's a huge theme in this whole conversation we've been having. I don't know. Sometimes it's you have to go through the uncomfortable times to get to the really good times,
Well, I didn't used to talk about that side of things, but I actually think it's really important to be transparent because, like you say, there's a lot of people out there that maybe don't feel like they're getting their full potential out of their life. And, they're kind of trapped in the choices that they made when they were younger. And another thing I'll say is I'm 40 years old, and I only got off hard drugs and started what I'm doing now when I was 30. So for anyone that feels like they made the wrong, they went to the wrong classes at uni, or they ended up in a shit job that they hate and they're 26 and it's too late. I'm here to say it's not too late.
That's a great point too, is I think it's so easy to feel in life. I think everyone hits this at some point, artists especially, where it's just shit, I made the wrong choice somewhere back there and now I can't turn it around, and I lost whatever the thing was. And you're right that it always feels that way, and it's never really the case. like, even if you can't exactly see the path to the thing you want, like, it is out there and it's never really over. And also, like, there's no expiration date for the shit we do. I mean, I'm older than you, and it's like we're here doing a podcast about dance music, and
yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like,
I mean,
it's
there's
never
so
ending.
many legends that are killing it at like 50, 60. And you know what? Like when I was a teenager, I very rarely saw older people doing well, it was like 30 was like the cap. And now that I'm older, like the cap is older.
Yeah.
So, you know, if someone's listening to this and they're 20 and they're thinking 40's old, by the time they reach 40, old might be considered 70. Like technology is moving forward. You know, like we've got all these things that keep us alive longer and keep us healthier. And our exams are more like, you know, like thorough. So,
well, and I mean, and DJing and producing for dance music is a young art form also. Like it is, 40, 50 years old, essentially. Yeah. And so, and especially like commercially successful people making, you know, careers off of it, becoming famous off of it. That's only really 20, 30 years old, maybe. And so, I mean, there hasn't even been an opportunity to watch somebody get like super old and keep doing it, you know? Like we haven't even seen that yet, but we will for sure.
Yeah, they'll be like the oldest DJ, like DJing on Elon Musk's like Starship Cruiser or something.
I mean, hopefully Elon Musk will be long gone by then, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to send him off to that planet, aren't we? Like,
well, hopefully we're just going to shoot him directly into the sun. That's my hope. Yeah.
I'm here for that.
Yeah. But I think you guys, doesn't the UK have like the oldest? Isn't there some like 90-year-old grandma DJ that had like some articles written about her?
Oh, you know what? There was a guy. So I used to live in Bristol, and there was a guy. He was named as like the oldest DJ in the UK, but he died like 2 years ago.
Oh man, R.I.P.
Yeah. I think he was like, I'm trying to remember how old he was when he passed away. He was in his 80s.
That's so sick.
Well,
I mean, you guys have David Rodigan. He's not quite that old, but he's fucking, every time you see him DJ, it's so fun.
You know what? I want to find out. Hey Siri, how old is David Rodigan?
Dave Mulligan is 42 years old.
Dave Mulligan.
Nah,
hey Siri, how old is David Rodigan? Oh, Sir David Rodigan is 73 years old.
73. God damn, that rules. And he's still jumping around like a maniac. I mean, yeah.
He is. He's absolutely having it in Jamaica. So
I love it, man.
There we go.
There's no age limit for this thing. Well, this is, I've been all over the place because you're so fun to talk to. Is there anything we haven't talked about? Anything else we should get out there before we say bye-bye?
No, dude, it's been great. I feel like we set the world to right. It's been like a therapy session.
Thank you so awesome. Much. No, thank you so much. Yeah, I needed this too. This was great.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on as well.
It's so nice to meet you. And hopefully, you know, next time you're stateside or next time I'm over where you are, we'll cross paths. That'd be fun.
Okay, cool. Well, I think my closest show to you would probably be New York.
Okay.
But let me know if you're around and we'll go grab some food or something.
Absolutely. Are you London based?
I'm London, yeah.
Okay, yeah, excellent. Well, yeah, I'll hit you up the next time I'm out there as well.
Cool. All right, lovely to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Take care. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.